Hey there, welcome to episode 3 of the FFS Talk audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo. We are recording today, Wednesday, 13 December 2023. The topic of the day for this yet another solo episode, which will probably be common for some time. Calendars, good and evil, one of my favorite topics. The FFS Talk audio program is, of course, a discussion forum of sorts for what works, what doesn't, and what we can do about it. So hopefully constructive yet sometimes frustrating discussion about those first two, what works, what doesn't. But ideally, much like lighting a candle, we need not curse the darkness completely. If you are not familiar with what FFS means, hang out with an Irish person for a while, probably a short while. You'll know. Today's show about calendars, good and evil. We live in modern times, as far as I'm aware. More people than ever have a pocket computer, always connected to the internets. I have one myself. We so rarely rely on purely wordy descriptions of locations or how to get there. And when is the last time you said, where is this place, and then allowed someone to tell you, especially if you're in an unfamiliar place or going to an unfamiliar part of your locality, when of course you can just pull out even MapQuest, Apple Maps, Google Maps, everybody's got maps. We don't rely on descriptions anymore as much, surely, not nearly so much. Yet, when it comes to when things are, we rely on a textual description or an email or a text message with maybe a date and a time and a location as plain old text. These calendar tools have existed for decades. They work. They really do. And believe it or not, they're actually in use in those very computers in your pocket. Everybody uses them except for you and me. We can change that. In the links for today's episode, in the show notes, hopefully wherever you found this podcast will display the show notes. There are a few links of relevance. First of all, I will point to my own shameless self-promotion, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo and ko-fi.com/DanHugo. My tip jars of sorts if you would like to support these various creative works. Hey, Las Vegas is a city of tipping. You do not have to, although I will point out that the Buy Me a Coffee page does have links to all of my creative projects and whatnot. It will have more. There are always things in the works. If you would like to buy me a coffee, I will buy a coffee with that donation, with that addition to the tip jar. So the rest of those links, I have linked to iCalendar.org, which is a useful resource when you want to find out about iCalendars. iCalendar, like the thing from Apple. If you receive an email with an ICS file, like basic.ics or similar, iCalendar Stream, that's what that is. It contains vCalendar or vEvent data. It can also include a vCard. These are standards that have been around forever. CalDave, CalDave Access and Scheduling, also linked from the iCalendar website. Those are basically about some RFCs, request for comment. It's the way the internet works, sort of, especially when it doesn't. There's a Wikipedia page for CalDave. CalDave is a way to actually communicate between servers. For example, if you use Google Calendar and your friend or colleague uses Apple Calendar, you can still share calendars because they use CalDave, and I cannot remember what Dave stands for. There's WebDave, CalDave, CardDave. It's a interchange format. Hey, it's probably on the Wikipedia page, left to the listener. It allows for interoperability between our various pocket computers. It's been around forever. Works. Something to think about. I've also linked to the Open Graph sort of homepage. Open Graph is a thing that Facebook started pushing a while ago. It enables you to embed a few things, a few tags, meta tags, in fact, in your web page, so that when someone shares it on Facebook and then other places, more so now, they will see an image, they'll see what the title of the page is, a brief description. So it allows for feed posts that are rich and appealing. Open Graph used to have event structure. And in fact, Facebook used to have APIs that allowed you to create Facebook events with external applications. So they had Open Graph markup for events and so on. Those all went away, making it more difficult to use Open Graph and the infrastructure, the APIs on Facebook and other. In fact, if you go to the Open Graph homepage or site, whatever it is, they really don't focus on events anymore. The event details are their dates and places and so on. But it's really left to be like kind of an afterthought at this point. It's too bad. And schema.org. Schema.org I actually like quite a bit. I think it's still trying to find its way. It is used by the big search engines. If you embed schema.org information in your website, you may appear in their knowledge graph that appears on your favorite search engine sidebar. Tagging information in your page according to the schema.org markup could make it easier for various artificial intelligence tools today to find specific information rather than having to infer. We'll see how that shakes out over time. Either way, schema.org, pretty broad support for different types of things, pretty useful. Although, while I have linked to the event top sort of definition structure, and it has specific types of events, including hackathon, doesn't seem to have a calendar, which would be interesting. But schema.org is also extensible. So, let's talk about that later. Let me take some tea here so my voice doesn't give out completely. So what is a calendar anyway? Well, it tells you where, when, probably who, maybe organizer, maybe people attending, and sometimes why. Maybe there's a nice description of what this is, what's going on. All civilizations have kept track of important dates somehow, though they were not always completely accurate. Precision has been pretty good. 2012, the world did not end, but I'm going to guess that the Mayans could figure out which day of which year was taking place on their way to 2012, the end of the world. Let us hope they were just not off by 12 years. Today we have fully capable networked calendars on our desktops, on our laptops, on our tablets, on our TVs, in our pockets, in our cars. They use protocols and interoperable formats on all these devices so that you can share a calendar if you are willing to drink the Kool-Aid and use these tools correctly, or avoid using tools that do not use these standards correctly, leading you down a path of confusion. I have strong opinions. If we share calendar information inappropriately, you may as well write things on a Post-it note or a dry erase, or just on a piece of paper hanging on your wall with the date, with the month and the day dates in little grid squares. Classic. But we are in modern times. Let us use modern methods. But why? Why should we use modern methods? Why should we worry about all this? Why is this so important to me? Why do I talk about it all the time? Why do we have a smart calendar project in the Innovate for Vegas Foundation's portfolio of projects that always need attention? Well, first of all, discovery is made easier when there is a view of time and place in a structured and explicit way. If you have to skim through blog posts or news articles or announcements or random emails or wherever you get your Twitter, X feeds, whatever, if you have to flip through those and try to figure out when things are where, if you have been a victim of the algorithm and relative times, and if you're a fan of food trucks, as I am, you may have seen occasionally, lately on Instagram, come and see us today at a place. And then you note that the post was from 4 days ago, but you are seeing it today. Pictures and words are not the ideal way to figure out when and where things are happening. And Instagram and Facebook, these are not purpose-built tools. But guess what? Calendars are purpose-built for those things. That's what they're for. So you can figure out what is happening in the future, maybe what's happening today, or sometimes, unfortunately, what you missed yesterday and last week by looking at calendars that are properly used. Calendars can change over time. Did you know that a schedule might change, might be updated on time, might be cut short, might be made longer? The details may change. Maybe there's a link about where to put to share your food preferences, your special food needs. The venue may change. Maybe the event is canceled outright, and you should know that before you venture out. We can be explicit about these by using calendar tools rather than sending an email that said event canceled. Sometimes people don't read those. Sometimes they read them later. Sometimes, like an Instagram post, they'll see it 3 days or 4 days later, and wish they would have known sooner. A calendar, used correctly, when people use them on their end correctly as well, can share this information in a useful and structured way around which one might make plans or change them. As well, calendars can be shared with others. Availability, free time, busy time can be shown, can be used to integrate with other calendars to come up with meeting places and times. So functional, these calendars. It's almost as though they've been in use for decades for things like this by people who care about these things. Computer nerds. I am one. Stay back. There's always confusion about calendars and events. I think this is one of the problems that is made worse by various platforms that everybody uses today that they treat as the oracle. When you add to your calendar, when you see a link somewhere that says add to calendar, then maybe it gives you an option. Used to be Yahoo was on there. I don't think that's on there so much anymore. But add it to your Outlook calendar, your Apple calendar, your Google calendar, or maybe you have an iCalendar option. And you might not even know what that is, although now you can go look at iCalendar.org and learn all about it. But this is bad. It's often bad. Why? Well, let me tell you. If you add an event to your calendar, you may as well be adding a digital Post-it note to your calendar on your wall, unless the provider of this calendar link has done the work. If somebody just sends you an email with an ICS file attached, and it is merely a vCalendar, vEvent structure that is just like a Post-it note. So if you click on a link and it does the equivalent of, hey, add it to your Google Calendar, here it is. If you inspect the contents of that link or what information is being shared with your calendar server, and again, your calendar server could be Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, Apple, your employer, who knows, anybody, if they're using a CalDave server. And by the way, Microsoft's done a pretty good job. Apple, actually all three, they all have their little quirks, but they've done a pretty good job with the interoperability, maybe because it's been around for so long and people use it. So CalDave sharing these links, but if you only add an event to your calendar and that calendar event is not attached to the original calendar, then the organizer can make a change to the original calendar that doesn't find you, right? So now, and the equivalent would be writing the copy of the event in your calendar notepad or in your personal organizer. I have heard people say to me, oh, I added your event to my calendar and I have it as a particular day or particular information. I said, but I shared the calendar so that you could subscribe to it because the venue changed, the time changed, it was canceled, whatever the case may be. And they said, oh, I had it in my calendar as the other way. Like, well, because you made a copy and I changed the event, but you didn't. So now your copy is out of date. So sometimes it's called forking. If you fork the event, you make your own version of it in your own calendar, you are responsible now for updating that. If the event is connected to the origin calendar, so if the event includes subscription information, so where to find the origin, then you are more likely to get those changes. Those changes will come to you on the server side. In fact, you may not know this, your calendar in your pocket is actually hosted on your service provider, your Googles and your Apples and so on. So the server will contact the origin server and ask for updates every once in a while. It'll do it periodically. Google does it once a day. Could be more often, but they'll never listen to that request. So you could become updated. Your calendar server will get an update from the origin calendar server, and it will update the calendar entry for that event. You might get a little notification or an email message or some other update automatically. Not ideal for real time. Like if the event was canceled that was going to start in 10 minutes, the timing might be wrong, but then a little bit tighter communication loop might be essential. But if you're planning for tomorrow or next week and a calendar event has changed and you have subscribed to it, then you will receive those updates. Those updates will come to you. You just have to do that extra work or let your service provider or platform owner or various other coders do this work of making sure that calendars and events are subscribed to each other and so on. And by the way, as we'll get to later in an awful example, my favorite bad example, where that calendar subscription is pointed to, if you subscribe to an event on a calendar and that calendar is not owned by the organizer, the lead organizer, the organizer of the event itself, or the calendar, the maintainer of the calendar, the origin of that event. So if someone else creates a copy and they allow you to subscribe to their copy, but then that person, that platform, those set of tools, if they don't do the work of keeping their calendar up to date with the origin calendar, then you have merely made a copy of a fork, and you will not receive the full benefit of calendar subscriptions. We'll get to that in a moment. So sharing an event can be useful. They are not all bad. There is a reason to use them. For example, let me take a swig of tea here for a moment. Probably doesn't sound any better. You have an appointment. These are not good examples, but they are sort of on the line. If you have a haircut, a dentist, a doctor, some procedure, you're getting your car detailed, whatever it is. An appointment is a structured way to share an agreed upon date, time, place with someone else so that you can show on your calendar when this event will be taking place. When do I need to go to the doctor? When do I need to have my car available for the detail person coming to, whatever it is. They're not perfect. They are subject to change, of course, and so that has to be negotiated. They're good for things coming up tomorrow, for example. If there's a reminder, if you send someone a calendar invite, you don't have to remind them in text or some sort of descriptive hand wave, the date, time, place. You can send them the information that will appear in the same way every time on their end in their calendar tools. So send them an email with a calendar attachment, an appointment attachment. The attachment will nowadays in these modern times be picked up by their email tools and be added to calendars, all kinds of fun stuff. This does require a certain amount of awareness of how calendars work, which may be a journey, but one that is ultimately worthwhile. So appointments are good. They're not great. They're sort of the baseline on the edge. People use it for this. It's not great. Bill payments, though. Bill payments, subscription renewals, recurring events that can be added to your calendar by your vendor or provider. I will give you an example. If you pay your electric bill every month, you may receive an email reminder that your bill payment is about to be due. You may have credit card payments that will send you email reminders. If they just send you a piece of text, or if you have domains, if you are a typical internet generation person, you have 50 domains, keeping track of those ideas that you had 25 years ago and which ones you have to renew for $50 each or whatever. Keeping track of that can be tricky. If only instead of sending you reminders, they would send you a calendar entry that would be added to your calendar automatically, and you'd say, oh, that's right. I have to spend $1,000 on those ideas I had a decade ago to renew those domains I never used. So if we use the calendar events for these recurring important events, if the bill date has to change, guess what? Rather than sending you calendar invites, your vendor or service provider could merely have a calendar for you, like your account. Your account has a calendar for this company, this service provider, this vendor. If you're a cheap domains subscriber, you use them as your registrar for your domains. You have 10 domains to renew this month on different days. Your account could have a calendar that you subscribe to. So their account calendar will appear in whatever calendar you add it to. And you'll say, oh, my monthly bills calendars include some payments that I have to make to cheapdomains.com. There they are. Now you don't have to worry about forgetting. And if for some reason you cancel or something expires, those can appear in the calendar as well. So they'll all appear in the same way. These are date and time critical things. We can use tools that are aimed specifically at dates and times. We can call them a calendar. As long as their calendar server will share information with CalDave, with your calendar server, piece of cake. And guess what? This already works. It's very much like magic. There are some other things that people do use. If you use Google Calendar, for example, you're probably, maybe you haven't even turned it off. There's a holiday calendar. You can have birthdays appear in your calendar. So if you have in your contacts, you have all your family and friends and colleagues and coworkers and their birthdays for some reason, then their birthdays will appear in your calendar. Now, here's a little fun fact. Birthdays show up as an all-day event. So they're blocked out in a calendar starting with UTC times. So you will sometimes see, in fact, you will always see, unless you take specific action, a birthday that you know is on, today, December 13th, will show up as an event starting on the 12th. So it will appear to be a 2-day event, or it will look like it starts at midnight UTC. So it's if you're on the West Coast, as we are, Pacific time here in Las Vegas, you will see that a birthday on the 13th started yesterday on the 12th at 4 p.m. and it goes until today, right? So these are annoyances. I should stick in the link if I can find it. The JWZ, Jamie Zwinski, wrote an article about how this is poorly handled. He's also a calendar fan, also a big keyboard fan. But there are ways to handle it. It has not been handled because it's not a life-changing situation. But it is something to be aware of, that all-day events such as birthdays can sometimes be handled in a strange way. So explicit times rather than all-day events are maybe a little bit better. Maybe birthdays should have a date and a time and a time zone. By the way, time zones are formalized in the vCalendar structure, vEvent, vTime zone, all good. So these are unlikely to change. An anniversary will maybe change if you don't celebrate it any longer for whatever reason, but holidays, birthdays, these special days, probably going to be recurring on an annual basis right around the same time or same date. So piece of cake. So these events don't necessarily need to be attached to a calendar. I could send you a birthday announcement for a child, and you will know the date and time as a birthday calendar entry, a child like a newborn. Things like this. So events do have a place. Like I said earlier, also appointments that are one shot. You just need to come to the doctor today or tomorrow. We'll send you a reminder, specific location, so they can work. Now, the problem with calendar sites and platforms and tools that make a business out of calendars, more tea, they really want you to come back to their website. So if you've ever used meetup.com, for example, my least favorite platform on the whole internet, but also I mentioned Facebook. They removed their APIs for Open Graph. So Facebook has events. Meetup.com has events. Eventbrite. Discord has events. I think Slack has events. LinkedIn has events. So you can create events on all these websites, and those sites want you to return. So they really want you to publish your event on their site so that they own the RSVPs, they own the notifications, they can share on the news feed. It gives more content for people to engage with. It feeds the algorithms. Great. So from a business perspective, it makes perfect sense to keep those meetings and events and calendars in the silo. The events look insular in that case. You can add events on your own calendar from these, often like Meetup. So add it to my calendar. Okay, we get into the same problem as before. Got to make sure we always know when events change. Well, the event is hosted on Meetup, but what if I need to share my event with many people? So I need to go where they find events. So I need to publish on Meetup and Eventbrite and LinkedIn and Discord and Facebook and wherever else. Now I need to change. I need to change the venue. I need to update the time. I need to cancel events. Now I need to update all of those. Oh, I forgot Meetup for some reason. Or Meetup was down. That happens every day. They could have a specific Meetup about downtime. So at least you could plan around it. It would be every day. So now you have to rely on these third parties that you have fanned out your event information for to reach your participants and attendees and so on. Yeah, it starts to get frustrating because they are trying to capitalize on the work that you need to do to maintain that connection with the people who want to show up to your events. The platform retains the users and that connection. You can send an email to your Meetup subscribers, right? Okay, well, what if I need to contact them now? Or what if I have somebody needs to fix their email address? Now I have to hope that they do it on Meetup. I don't have control over what messages are going where. So you're really ceding a lot of control to these platforms, and those platforms really want to capitalize on this attention economy. And even though they are purpose-built, they are not your purpose-built. So I am not thrilled with handing over your event information and maintenance of your RSVP lists, which we'll get to next, to these third-party sites that are more concerned with the volume of visitors and their own engagement rather than the experience that you and your participants enjoy or do not. So now the RSVP conundrum. This is probably the thing that people notice first when they run into this. It has to do with two aspects of RSVPs, répondez s'il vous plaît, or more generally, who is coming to my event. To reach the people, you must post your event in many places, as I said. So you are now spending your time saying, okay, I got to post on Meetup. I got to get a picture. I got to go up to the title and fill out the form. Okay, now I got to do that again over here. And by the way, if you've ever done job hunting sites, resume posting portals, for a while, everybody was doing that. You had to come up with your own resume profile every single time. So Monster, Hot Jobs, Dice, the list goes on, Indeed, Simply Hired, more and more. So everybody that was using their own formats, it's not unlike the event conundrum and the related RSVP conundrum. So you've filled out all these events and you have posted these in various places. Maybe people find you on Facebook. Maybe they find you on Meetup. One person might RSVP in one place. That would be great. If I find you on Facebook and Meetup and I think, oh, I want to follow the Facebook event too, just in case you post something different there. Okay, I will RSVP to the Facebook event. And my Meetup username is Vinny, and my Facebook username is Dan Hugo. So now you have two RSVPs from two accounts that have dissimilar names. I don't know where I was going with dissimilar names, same person, same event. Now two people are coming. Now the event has to change. You change it on Facebook. You forgot to change it on Meetup. Now one person cancels because he saw it on me. Cancels the event on Facebook because, I can't make it now that you changed the date or the time or whatever. The Meetup event didn't change, or I didn't notice it, or I didn't get a notification, so I didn't change it. Now you still have one RSVP. Are you planning on seating at a restaurant or catering or some other logistics? These things can matter. So it's kind of important to get a real number when you're looking for RSVPs. So if you have multiple platforms, multiple tools used in different ways, that just becomes your other full-time job. When you change your event details, you must do all these updates, and the RSVPs must be made aware. If you do not have their contact information and the event changes day of, are you going to go and update 12 different platforms that you've been posting on for the last 2 or 3 months to get everybody involved and on board with your event? Oh, today we have to cancel, or it has to shift by an hour, or a parking change. You can't park on this, so you have to park over there. If you cannot reach all of your people in one place, okay, you can say that you should have gathered up your RSVPs, but what if it's not a close enough, intimate enough relationship with your attendees so that they want to share your contact information? Now, well, that's unfortunate. That it makes the world easier if you can share your contact information, at least a secondary email address or something. But if you don't have real-time or very, very short-time contact capabilities, how do you reach them directly? You need to revisit all your event posts, apparently. I better send that email. I better open that chat on Meetup. Oh, I better do it on Facebook. Oh, I got to go to LinkedIn. Oh, now I got to go to Eventbrite. So frustrating. There's my least favorite example, even worse than Meetup, is right here in Vegas. I have not put a link in the show notes because I don't want to promote. I will simply say that it is 3 different sites that all have basically the same software behind them. Tech, network, and create. That's all I'll say. One person runs them. They scrape events. And let me give you a little backstory before I go down this path. I'm a big fan of Facebook. No, I'm a big fan of food trucks. I'm a big fan of food trucks. And I've had 2 owners associations that I've helped to co-found. And here in Vegas, pandemic got in the way. But part of the challenge with mobile vendors, if you're a food truck fan, is where is my favorite food truck? Oh, I will check Twitter back in the old days. And now, I'll check Instagram. And like I said, it might tell you where they are 3 days ago. But you got to actually go follow the food truck. Or which food trucks are going to be near my workplace today? Or which food trucks are going to be at First Friday? Good luck. So the use of a calendar to keep track of these types of things, that's a great example of why subscribing to a calendar for a particular, your favorite food truck. Let me follow the, I can't think of any, Tunu Fix. Let me follow the Tunu Fix calendar. Oh, they're going to be at the hospital today. Great. In the parking lot? Perfect. Till 2:30? Wonderful. Now I don't have to follow them on Instagram. It shows up in my calendar. Done. Oh, they had to cancel Friday for high winds or a low temperature or whatever. Okay. Now I have other lunch plans for Friday. I already know They're not going to be there tomorrow. Perfect. So calendar that has information that is provided by the organizer or the origin responsible parties, very valuable. Back in the day, there was a website called Roaming Hunger. There were everybody was building food truck finding tools in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, those nerds. So they would scrape Twitter. They would follow food trucks on Twitter and they would say, oh, they posted they're going to be somewhere. We'll put that on our own little version of a calendar. The person, the owner of the food truck or the person doing the bookings didn't know they were doing this. So now they have to update their calendar. The service in question doesn't go and grab the new updated event. They haven't really tied events together with a structure like they do in calendars. So now, and this is a true story, there was an owner of the Hya Korean barbecue truck, Sun, a lovely lady, so very, very cool, great food. She said to me one day, Dan, Roaming Hunger told everybody I was going to be at Angel Island at 2 o'clock in the morning. This is in San Francisco. She said, I wasn't there, and everybody got mad at me. Exactly. So Roaming Hunger somehow came up with this notion that this food truck was going to be at Angel Island at 2 o'clock in the morning. Not the case, not even close. But if people were using Roaming Hunger as though it were an authoritative information source, if that's where I go to find out where food trucks are, guess who suffers? The food truck. You're not where you said you were going to be. So here, one of those sites I mentioned earlier, here in Vegas, the top level domain rhymes with Vegas. Today, I haven't checked today, yesterday, one of my events that happens to be on Meetup, which I don't really use except for one particular Meetup that I have, the Bootstrappers Breakfast. One event for January appears on this site 3 times. When I first noticed that they were doing this, maybe a year ago, I said, hey, you have the time wrong. You have the time as like later in the day. I don't even know if they had the location right. And I said, if people use your website to find my event, they're finding the wrong information. Much like Sun and the Hya food truck, I don't want people getting angry at me because I wasn't where I said I was going to be because I didn't tell them that. You did. I said, would it be easier to just remove the event from your calendar so that we don't have to deal with this? And the person running these 3 sites said, no, I'm going to keep it on there. And that was my end of doing business with them. So I don't have any control over the misinformation. My event is not happening 3 times at once, but I have nothing to say about it because I don't post that event. So if you're going to take responsibility for sharing this information, you should share the correct information. You also must subscribe to the events. Meetup doesn't allow subscribing to events. You have to you have to join the event or however you scan through events. So that's up to that person to do. But they're prone to errors and it doesn't track changes when you do things like this. I believe it's a WordPress calendar plugin. Here's my main concern though. So not only is the incorrect information shared with a casual peruser of events, right? Like, hey, I'm looking for network events in the Vegas area. I'm looking for tech events because I believe tech is the only thing that matters in the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem, etc. You go to the site, you see, hey, Bootstrappers Breakfast 3 times on the same day in January. I will add that to my calendar 3 times. You can inspect the information that's added to your calendar. It marks the origin as that website. So if I was publishing my events on my own website, for example, I would say, I'm going to have this event. It's a ffstalk.com event. Here's the calendar. Subscribe to the FFS Talk events calendar for updates and upcoming events. Done. This site comes along, scrapes my calendar, makes the origin their website. So tech, create, network, whatever the case may be. Now they are responsible for providing the people interested in my events with updated information. If for some reason they fail to pick up an update, if they're not properly subscribed to my calendar server or whatever, anyone who has used their service has not added my event to their calendar. They've added a copy of the event. So we talked about this earlier. They've added a copy of the event to their calendar, not my calendar. It seems subtle until I cancel or change my event. And, hey, why is my event on your website 3 times? Did you update all 3 of them when I had to change mine? Good question. Do I have to keep track of that? I shouldn't have to. And then, of course, I asked that person to remove the event, stop doing this, and they refuse. So they're going to keep doing it, even though it's wrong. I guess that's some sort of freedom of speech right there. So these are the sorts of things that can really cause trouble. And if people don't know, if the casual person with their calendar in their pocket says, oh, I added your event to my calendar, it said the Bootstrappers Breakfast was at 10 a.m. And I would say, well, it ends at 10 a.m. It starts at 8 a.m. Or what if we change which we have done 3 times in the last 2 years? What if we move to a different coffee shop, change our scenery? What if they don't pick up the changes? Too bad. So misinformation is almost worse than no information. It can lead to people being upset. My Hia food truck example. It can lead to confusion and disappointment. And by the way, another reason to use calendar, speaking of food trucks, have you ever visited a food truck and you just know it's there every week? It's at the same spot every Thursday. It's at First Friday every month, if you have a First Friday where you are. So you already know where it's going to be. You don't even look at the calendar. Schedule momentum. And this actually happened many, many times. We have too many food trucks to attend our monthly event. In fact, the first time I actually kind of noted this in my mental notebook, it was at Eastwood Eats? Something Eats. It was in Palo Alto. It was Eastwood? No. My first food truck event that I attended regularly every month. Hey, why is my favorite, was it every month or every week? I think it was every week. How come my favorite food truck isn't here? Oh, we switched to a rotation because we had too many food trucks that want to attend. So now they're there every 2 weeks or every other, whatever. I think it was every 2 weeks. So every week, now it's every 2 weeks. Oh, so my favorite food truck will be here next week. So schedule momentum can sometimes lead to confusion when you need to have a schedule change. And there was no formal communication. These were early days, so not something to get too excited about. However, the tools exist. The tools and methods have been around forever. There's broad access. There's plenty of open source tool, method, and implementation out there. There's really no reason and there's no justification. There's no business case to be made for forking events, for copying them, changing the organizer link to your own platform, and then failing in any way to provide correct, authoritative information, but rather instead providing multiple copies of possibly incorrect and outright misleading information. So not a fan of that. That methodology is just broken. The website has ads on it, of course, so you must return to that website to get more information, ad views. Yay. Okay, so enough complaining. What can we do? We know what works, what doesn't. The calendar scheme works. What doesn't is bad implementations. So what can we do to make it better? Let's take advantage of the standard protocols. I've linked to them in the show notes in the links. CalDave, iCalendar, vCalendar objects. They are extensible. They are mostly interoperable. If you have a vCalendar with a V event and a V card and a V time zone in the correct format, it's properly structured, and you share it with somebody using an iPhone with their Apple iCalendar, I think is the tool. A Google Calendar, an Outlook Calendar, a Yahoo Calendar, a whatever other calendar, as long as they're using CalDave, as long as the CalDave server understands iCalendar streams, as long as they can properly decode what is, like I said, almost completely interoperable. There's a couple of weird corner cases, but mostly, 95%, maybe 90. If you use tools that follow these standards, you automatically interoperate. We can share authoritative calendar information rather than making copies and breaking calendar updates. So instead of the awful sites I've referred to moments ago, instead of them saying, here, add our version of this event to your calendar, subscribe to the original calendar. Now, what you'll find is that Meetup doesn't publish calendars, so that's the starting point. Stop using Meetup as your authoritative event source. Use a platform that supports these calendar standards, and you will have better, more correct, more current communications with the people who want to either find or attend, or both, your events. So if somebody wants to repeat your events, if they want to help spread the word, help with discovery, great, more power to them. Support correct, authoritative information. Now, in fairness, if someone did share a correct CalDave calendar server link for a calendar subscription, the website may do that. So it's really a question of interoperability between a variety of bad services that have bad motivations. But like I said, the very fact that a bad implementation doesn't allow for the organizer to correct or remove information at the whim of the platform is problematic. CalDave automatically takes care of that. If I want to remove a calendar server, I just block it. I want to remove a calendar entry, I can mark it canceled for that server, etc. Or I can just remove it. We must maintain authoritative organizer control of calendars. So that gets to the Meetup question. Meetup and LinkedIn. And if you find yourself needing to post to all these different platforms, making each of those the origin of your event. So you've said, I'm going to make LinkedIn the place to find my event. But LinkedIn owns the calendar server. You no longer have authority. You can edit the event perhaps, but you don't own the event. LinkedIn does. So they decide if they're going to share it with someone or not. They decide if others can synchronize calendars or not, etc. So retain control of your calendar. Guess what? You can use Google Calendar. We do that on the Innovate for Vegas website. I do it on the Cafe Genius website for pitch practice, although there's nothing on there right now. But you can literally subscribe to the pitch practice calendar or the gatherings calendar on Innovate for Vegas. You can subscribe to these calendars and they will be in your calendar for all time. You will know when we add an event, remove an event, update an event. Piece of cake. And you know, it can be an Outlook calendar as long as it's publicly visible. You mark your events public, you mark the calendar public. You can still mark your events private. You can keep your recipient invite lists private. There's even more features that are not made available on Google Calendar, for example. So if there are better tools. But you can actually make use of your calendar and your events on your calendar and maintain your RSVP list. You can propagate RSVPs, which is something we're looking at for our smart calendar explicitly to make that completely useful. You can make use of the tools and the platforms and the methods and implementation so that people can actually discover things and get proper, correct, up-to-date information about upcoming events, changes and cancellations, and even events they don't know about yet. So discovery can be made easier if the information is available, visible, shareable. If I can share my event with my friend, rather than saying, hey, we're going here tomorrow, you can say, here is the actual detail about this event. You can find out all about it. You can share it with your friends. Yeah, you can do that with Meetup and LinkedIn. Oh, by the way, if you're not signed in on LinkedIn, you may not be able to share an event because you have to be logged in to, nah, come on. Public events or events that should be visible publicly, whether or not you can attend publicly, that's a different story. But you should be able to discover things without being concerned about who you're connected to, who you're friends with, who you're logged into. Public social calendars. And along that line, be very clear. The goal is to not retain your attendees, participants, your interested parties for our gain. We're not here to build an ad-driven platform that we capitalize on your work creating these events so that we lock people into visiting our website. There's a time and a place for that. It's behind us. So using these open standards, making sharing and discovery the priorities, there's a value for value proposition. You can monetize that, but locking people in, vendor lock-in, maintaining silos, that's not how you make a smarter smart city, for example. You don't lock people in. You let the information flow freely so people can make use of that. That's the whole open data model, which I'm sure we'll talk about another time. So let me close with some examples of the brave new world. And like I said, Innovate for Vegas Foundation, of which I am the managing director sometimes. One of our projects called Smart Social, basically inspired by the notion that we need a better calendar for discovery and information sharing so people know what's going on. It's almost impossible here in Vegas. So here are some examples with the assumption that we get that platform deployed. Version 1 could enable some of this, but eventually all of these examples would be part of the implementation of the smart calendar. As some of you know, my favorite topic other than calendars is public transit. I'll let that sink in for a moment. Public transit. Each bus route, and this applies to anywhere, not just Vegas, each bus route could have a calendar. So you would have on the calendar every day the time, if you wanted to get really granular, the time at each stop. You could literally have a calendar. You can make it a virtual calendar. So it's not something you'd maintain every day. You'd have the schedule, which is published via the GTFS schedule component of the GTFS standard. We'll get into that another time, I'm sure. So the real time and the schedule. The schedule part has each bus or transit stop with the latitude and longitude and everything. So you could have the time that a particular bus is supposed to reach a particular bus stop on a particular, what do they call it, trip. A trip is when the bus is moving from point to point, right? So during the trip, it's supposed to stop at a particular time, at a particular place. It sounds like a calendar event. So every bus route has a calendar associated with it. And now you need to schedule a detour tomorrow. Or, your city is ripping up all the streets and causing all its bus transit routes to have to be changed and detoured and times changed and whatnot. Races come first. So F1 in, public transit schedules out. You can put all that on a calendar so people are not surprised. You're not trying to tweet about it. Why has Twitter become the way cities reach their people? So purpose-built tools that will tell you important information, like the bus that you rely on to get to school will be moving its bus stops. You should let people know. At the very least, you could do announcements on calendars, right? If a detour is scheduled from day 1 to day 10, put it on a calendar. Don't make it something you discover at the last minute. The Horrible Transit app, for example, is a great place to find out where a bus is today at this moment. But if you're looking for information for tomorrow, good luck. So all this can be visible using purpose-built tools, calendars. Construction, speaking of Las Vegas, construction detours and delays, planned service outages for power, water, etc. Authoritative events like elections, vaccination pods, just in case there's another pandemic. Mobile services. I know there's a blood drive van that appears at my local grocery store like once a month, maybe. Could I tell you what day it appears? Nope. Should I be able to? Maybe. What if I had a calendar for that parking lot of that strip mall that would tell me things like, at this location, Thursdays every month on the third Thursday, blood van, whatever. There's a medical testing vehicle. It's a kind of it looks like a big giant luxury coach bus that parks near the Centennial Hospital sometimes, and they do medical services in this bus thing. Other services like this, community services that are available to people that are mobile, who knows when they show up? Do you even know where to look? But what if I could look at a location? I'm standing here. Maybe I have a mobile device so I can do GPS. I am here right now. What's going on here this month? Maybe I can discover these events by being in a specific, or looking in a, you don't have to be standing there. Like, show me all the food trucks that are going to appear at this location near my workplace for the next month. I don't even know what the food trucks are. I just know where I am and I want to know for the next month. And show me the food trucks and all the blood drive vans that are going to be at different polling places on election day, right? You can do all kinds of things like this. Once you have calendar data, mix in a little map data, you're off to the races. These are all ideas I had for food trucks, right? So if you love food trucks and you're crazy and you're also a programmer, it's not a stretch to believe that you could construct virtual calendars. So I don't have to maintain a calendar for all these different locations and whatnot. I just say, okay, event, food truck, this place, this time, this date. Once I have that for all the food trucks, for all the places and all the times, like start an owners association and start to gather this information in useful ways. Fun story, Morrison Forrester, MoFo, law firm in Menlo Park, had food trucks, I think almost every day. As one owner told me, if the office manager of this law firm, which was a multi-story, like 10-story building, if they send out the email, I get twice as much business as if they don't. So one person would make or break a mobile vendor's business day, based on sending out a calendar reminder in the form of a human readable email. Well, why is it not on the calendar? Lawyers know how calendars work. Trust me. So what if you published a calendar for the Morrison Forrester parking lot, and you could just automatically see which food trucks are going to be right outside your door if you're working there? Just walk outside, go grab a bite, go back to work. Totally doable. We can totally do that here in Vegas. With 40 million visitors, they can much more easily figure out what's going on. And by the way, if you are trying to schedule an event, I need to see what events are going on around not only a place, but a time. Should we go Thursday at this venue? Should we go Friday at that venue? If only there was a way to overlay all the events going on nearby and so on. Oh, guess what? I just described that. So if you know the date, time, location of events, you can add them together. They can be points on a map. They can be days on multiple calendars stacked together. Both. Anything is possible. Tracking recurring yet variable events. First Friday occasionally gets canceled. Comedians and performers of various kinds, they sometimes show up at a venue. Sometimes they have to cancel or reschedule. And there's a mad dash to, if it's a bigger show, they got to publish it on all the places and give all the scuttlebutt. They had to cancel the show because of whatever. Okay, great. But put it on the calendars, make them visible. Mobile vendors have that problem, like I said. Mobile vending events. And guess what? Here's another fun fact. Sub-events. If you look at schema.org, you can have sub-events. So if I say I have First Friday. First Friday is quite often on the first Friday of the month, every month. Now, if I'm a food truck owner and I'm going to be at First Friday, and I know for a fact that First Friday does not promote the food trucks that pay $400 to be there, you're on your own. Well, if I create a calendar entry for my participation in First Friday and I attach it as a sub-event to the First Friday calendar event, and if First Friday, they could make use of this information on their website, but either way, if our smart calendar would say, oh, these events are related, First Friday had to be canceled due to high winds. This has happened a couple of times in the many, many years. High winds forecast, must cancel First Friday for safety. Okay, that happens. But all the sub-events could also be canceled. So anybody that was going to go to First Friday only because they knew their favorite food truck was going to be there, or their favorite musical performer, or their favorite artist, or their other mobile vendor favorites, food trucks, artist tents, booths, whatever it is. Now they may not be following the First Friday news feed or following them on Twitter or Instagram or trying to figure out what's going on with First Friday. They only know that their favorite vendor, artist, etc. was going to be there. I'm following them. Oh, their event got canceled. Okay. Oh, I see. It's because of the whole event got canceled because of weather. Okay. These things happen. Or in general, I want to go to First Friday. Who's going to be there? Good luck. But if people use sub-events and they can actually put themselves on a sub-event schedule in this structured way, it's a piece of cake. You just say, I'm going to be at this event. Here's my event. It's a sub-event of that event. Done. Once that happens, you can very easily see not only who is going to be there, but who was there. I actually did a little survey one time. I would walk up to people. They just got their food from a food truck. They turn around. They're holding whatever it is, their bounty of snacks, victuals aplenty. I say, what's the name of the food truck you just got that from? And they don't know. So if you extend that out, which food trucks were at First Friday last month? Which food trucks were at this event yesterday? Which vendors were at this festival? Which farmers market vendors were there last month or 2 months ago? Which ones will be there next month? Food, farmers market vendors have even more of the case because they're smaller. They appear less frequently as food trucks, right? So if you're a tent vendor, a farmers market vendor, you have fewer options. You can't set up your tent in a parking lot by yourself like a food truck can. So being discovered is even more important. It can make or break a business if people know where you are. And like that vendor that was selling the all natural honey that they found 2 months ago at this food truck at this farmers market event or food truck event, who knows? Are they going to be anywhere this month? And I'm just giving you very simple examples, but once you know in a structured, standard, shareable way, date, time, place, description, almost anything is possible. So that's one of the things that I'm going to toot my organization's horn. That's one of the motivation. Well, it's part of the motivation, but it's one of the aspects of Smart Social, the Smart Calendar sub-project, is to make discovery of various events and places easier, making use of modernity. We need not demur when we talk about use of these modern tools, even though they're old. That just means they work. Occasionally things that don't work hang around for too long. The IRS, for example. But it is possible to make proper use of calendars. If you knew how credit card transactions work, you'd be saying, oh, okay, so these old wire protocols that are horrible, but they do work, and there's a lot invested in them. So they could be adapted for modern times, but the base protocol, the CalDave, iCalendar stream, vObject, vCalendar, vEvent, vCard, vTimeZone, vDescription, these all work. They can be translated into HTML. They can be translated into schema.org markup. I would like to see an extended schema.org object for a calendar so that if you visit a website, you can not only read a calendar, but there can be embedded computer readable information about the collection of events. Schema.org does support sub-events. So human readable, computer discoverable with spidering robots. If you gather that information into a proper calendar structure, you can do a great many things with it. It's almost like having, if somebody gives you a list of numbers, comma separated, I can use comma separated value parsing and turn that into a spreadsheet. If they just give numbers to you in any old format, you're like, now I got to go through and figure out how to make use of this. Same thing with calendars. If I just tell you, if I give you dates and times in the format of my choosing, and you're like, they used Julian and Gregorian calendars intermixed, and that the date and time formats are all out of whack, and they're using military over here, and I don't even know what time zone over there. If they just barf up information about these things, you're less likely to be able to use them in an effective way. So the entire point of this episode of Calendars Good and Evil is to say that calendars are good. It's the people using them that are evil. Let's make better use of them. Don't forget, you can support this production and many others. I do present to you 4, largely solo lately, audio programs every week on fascinating topics such as this. Quaggling Sand, which was published this week. It was about travel. Today's episode of FFS Talk, Calendars, Good and Evil. There will be episodes of the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program and the Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program. Topics as yet unknown. You'll have to tune in. Those are all linked on my buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo profile. Feel free to just check that out. You don't have to buy me a coffee if you don't want to. You could. You don't have to. But thanks for my supporters of the old days and any current. Try to think of some stuff for 2024 to add some value to make that more interesting. We'll see. In the meantime, you can probably hear my voice is ready to call it a day, as am I. Thanks for tuning in. Later.